Trump administration is moving to cancel all remaining federal contracts with Harvard University, which are estimated to be worth about $100 million. This is just the latest salvo in a series of skirmishes between the university and the administration, with $2.6 billion in federal research money already suspended. That's part of a broader White House strategy to reshape higher education in light of allegations of unchecked antisemitism and liberal bias on college campuses. Joining us right now is AEI President Emeritus Arthur Brooks. He's a Harvard professor, also a columnist for The Atlantic. And Arthur, you've had a ringside seat for all of this.
Yeah.
I know you're not speaking on behalf of Harvard University,
right,
but why don't you tell us a little bit about what's happening at the university right now?
Well, it's pretty chaotic, of course, because a lot of researchers that have nothing to do with any of the controversies are being affected by this. A lot of labs are getting shut down. A lot of researchers are getting laid off at this point. And that's sort of the collateral damage to what's happening. And then, of course, there's the students. There's about 6,800 international students who are in danger of not being able to enroll. I don't think that's going to happen, and there's a temporary restraining order against it right now. But that's a real danger, and it's making people think twice. And so there's maximum pressure on the university from the administration right now. It's creating a lot of big problems outside of the blast zone of what I think anybody's intended to try to change.
In terms of anti-Semitism on campus.
Yeah, exactly right. And, none of the things that the president is bringing to bear or the administration is bringing to bear on Harvard is nothing new. During the Obama administration, they were doing exactly the same thing with Title IX and the Civil Rights Act. And they were bringing all of the DEI stuff and all of what they were talking about then and talking about they were threatening to cut off funds then, too.
Really,
and so this is the toolkit was actually set during the Obama and Biden
prior to
years.
that, too, what was that religious university?
That was Bob Jones University.
Bob Jones.
Yeah, for sure.
Was...
So there's nothing new that's actually going on here. What's new is that it's such pressure so quickly on one particular university.
Well, and following through on the threats.
Yeah, indeed. And the fact that the media is actually paying attention to it right now. The media wasn't paying attention to it when the Obama administration was doing exactly the same thing.
Right.
But from your perspective, as somebody who was watching the anti-Semitism that was taking place on campus,
it was really shocking.
So, what is the right step? What should be done to address these?
There's a ton of reform that needs to get done, and the good news is we have a new president who's dedicated to it. Alan Garber is a very, very good president. He's a very reasonable and tough guy. Not just tough with the administration; he's tough internally. When people are saying, whining about the fact that all of our rights are being taken away. And, he's saying, whoa, this is something we need to deal with. This is, politically, this is what's happening. We have to cope with it. And I think he will. The zombie apocalypse scenario that we're reading about all the time, this is the end of higher ed. This is the end of, it's not the end of Harvard. They will work it out. There will be changes, and there's going to be some pain. But, we've got a good administration at Harvard, and I think they'll deal pretty well at the end of it.
But I can't figure out what you're trying to say here. Are you trying to say that you're happy about what the Trump administration is doing?
No, I'm not happy with what the Trump administration is doing. I'm not.
I think that he thinks that needed to be done.
I think there's lots of what I'm saying is there's a lot of change that needed to happen, but this is real overreach. And it's actually affecting things that it shouldn't be affecting.
But he doesn't believe that Harvard should get the money at all. He thinks he should take the money and give it to trade schools.
Well, that's what he's saying right now, but that's how the president deals. I mean, the president makes deals, and he comes in with maximum force.
Did Garber start out by staking a position that was just too intransigent? He's going to maybe that's how negotiations start.
I think, I mean, Trump is coming in hot, and Harvard is coming back pretty hot,
so
too.
They meet that's all along what people have said.
I think there's going to be a resolution.
Bill Ackman's case was, look, there's plenty of stuff that needs to be fixed here, and it should have been more of a, you're right, Trump administration. There's a lot we need to do, but you're overstepping here, here, and here. This is what we're willing to do to try and address here, here, and here, because it's insidious, rampant, long-lasting, and what the way for 30 or 40 years, this is the end result.
I mean, the big problems here that we really need to take care of, and I think the administration at Harvard understands this, is number one, that activism is way more important than inquiry in higher ed today. Activism is what's ruining higher ed. Angry activism on campus. This is the reason for the mental health crisis on campus, is there's so much anger, and the whole idea that inquiry, you go to college to look at interesting ideas, to test big thoughts, to actually be threatened by things you've never heard of before. Now you're going to be propagandized in many places. There are whole departments dedicated to a political point of view, and that's got to stop. And I think that most of the people in the administration of Harvard understand that. The question is, how do we disassemble those things in an orderly way? And the second thing, of course, is that there's not any sort of balance of viewpoint on campuses, I mean, in any reasonable way, and that's a big problem as well, because, and not just because I want more conservatives as a conservative, although I do, it's because when you don't hear any points of view besides one political point of view in college, that's a mediocre education.
You say that Harvard will survive. There will be negotiations that take place, but there's definitely fallout that takes place now.
Yeah.
I can't imagine people wanting to send their kids to this school in the middle of this turmoil.
They still will. It's the most amazing thing. It's the Vatican of higher education. The problem really isn't Harvard. This is my view. Again, I'm not speaking for the university, but the problem is other universities that don't have the cachet. Those are the ones that are really going to suffer. If the fallout is affecting them as well, there are a lot of people that won't send their kids there. There are a lot of people who won't. People will still go to Harvard because Harvard's a great university and it still has an incredible brand. But down the line, maybe not so much for
What about
other
foreign
places.
students? Do you like the idea?
Hate it. I mean, the truth is we got to bring in the best people in the world. And if I could, I would take away their passports and keep them here forever.
And it's even worse because I saw Trump yesterday saying we need to see the social, things that these foreign students, we need to see everything they've ever posted online before we decide to let them to come to Harvard.
It's ridiculous.
They're going to micromanage case by case the government who gets to come into Harvard. That's crazy.
Let me ask you a question. Given that you spend a lot of time with members of the Republican Party, most of them are not saying what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them believe what you're saying.
Yeah, that's right.
But they don't want to say it.
Yeah, and part of the reason is because politicians are not portraits in courage all the time. They don't always say what they want to say for political reasons. This is the way that this works. But once the negotiations, I predict, get underway, that we're going to see a lot more reason enter into this.
Don't you think they're just going to lose in court? I mean, let's just be honest here. I mean, you saw the WilmerHale case last night, which is by the way, we haven't really talked about it, the big story on Wall Street this morning. Everyone that I'm on the chat groups with is talking about how effectively... No, all these elite law firms settled over this executive order, which was, by the way, very Harvard-esque in a way. WilmerHale decides they're going to actually take the case to court. They don't settle like Skadden and Paul Weiss and these other firms that basically shrunk super early in the game. And now WilmerHale wins. Now, by the way, that'll get appealed. But ultimately, I think if you read the rulings, it's going to be very hard for Harvard not to win ultimately. And so the bad news for Harvard is it's just going to take a long time. And you can get set back over a 2-year period.
A lot of the research agendas, that's particularly the case. I don't think that actually we're going to block the foreign students. I think we're going to wind up having foreign students because...
By the way, and the judge has already put a restraining order.
Exactly right. But I think what's the real damage is actually the long-term research agenda in science that's completely outside of what they were complaining about with DEI and what they were complaining about with antisemitism. And that's collateral damage that's very, very costly for this country. And I think it's pure overreach.
And that's when I talk about the lasting effects. I'm talking about those issues.
Of course.
The excellence that has been achieved, not just at Harvard, but a number of other universities. You can look at UPenn and other
It's not
places.
good. It's not good. Now, again, ordinarily what happens is that when all is said and done, things are not as bad as the prognosticators have said they would be. I mean, the zombies aren't going to come and eat Harvard. That's not going to actually happen. And Harvard is pretty good at coming back pretty quickly. It's a good institution that has is well managed for the most part.
But if you chase out these researchers,
but it's certainly hurting right now. It's hurting right now. It absolutely is.
Yep.